Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to dive into some of the Orioles' struggles at the major league level as the club dropped to 9-13 on the season with their loss at Washington on Tuesday night, which came on the heels of a 24-2 drubbing by the Cincinnati Reds in Sunday's finale at Camden Yards. We're going to end the show on a more positive note, though, to break down the recent promotion of Braxton Bragg from High A Aberdeen to Double A Chesapeake. But before we get into tonight's episode, we like to shout out new members of our Patreon community, so we like to always do at the top of this episode. And for that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Yes. Amazing that we can continue to get patrons when the Orioles are looking this lifeless. But I guess if you've been with us a while, you're kind of used to that from our beginnings of our days. But Andrew Gelsinger, thank you for signing up at the Double A level for a year up front. And Cicero, thank you for signing up at the Single A level. And also shout out to Sarah, Garrett, and Brandon, who have helped us get these last few patrons. They knew some Orioles fans that would like to be a part of it. They signed up, and hopefully you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, we always appreciate other patrons bringing new members of the community into the fold. And now is a good time to sign up because we're about a week or two away from the first monthly update of our top 50 prospects list this season. You won't want to miss that. In the meantime, though, we do have to talk about the Orioles and their struggles at the major league level. The Orioles went 500 in their last homestand, but things ended on a sour note, as I mentioned at the top of the show, with a 24-2 loss against the Reds on Sunday. And if you lift up the hood of this team, you're not going to find a big mystery about what the biggest problem is, and that is the starting pitching. Charlie Morton had yet another horrendous outing against the Reds on Sunday, and Dean Kramer, after the best start of his season last week, struggled against the Nationals on Tuesday night. It continues a troubling trend for a rotation that I think we knew was flawed coming into this year, but that we had hoped would keep the Orioles competitive, especially with the lineup and an improved bullpen. But so far, the pieces just are not coming together for this team. And Nick, I'll start with you. I know the starting pitching is the most glaring and most obvious issue with this club, but I think that there are other things we can discuss here. So what in your mind registers as a problem for this team?
It's everything. It's literally everything. Nobody except Cedric Mullins is hitting. You're not even going up against good lefties. I have no clue who this guy who pitched tonight for the Nationals is. Literally, I can rattle off 10,000 Major League Baseball players right now. I have no idea who Mitchell Parker is, and he almost threw a no-hitter. So there's that. It's just this entire team is waiting on Kyle Gibson to make them better. Like, that's where we are. It's sad. It's pathetic, honestly. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not lighting a pitchfork. I'm not ready to go storm the warehouse. Like that, I'm not there, but like this team just lost 24-2 and then 7-0. It was almost no hit to a nobody. Like I can't just pretend like everything's rosy and positive anymore. I don't know. I'm just kind of sick and tired of you limited the damage after, you're already down 2-0 in the first inning. There's Brandon Hyde just rewording the same things in his post-game press conferences here. They're pressing, and now things are just piling up. Like, okay, well, same thing, different words. I don't know. I really don't know what to think at this point, other than like it's impossible to watch, honestly.
Yeah, it's whatever the concurrence of events is to lead us here. I mean, we've been outscored 31-2 in the last two games, and that's with the day off in between. It's not good, and I think Nick said it right. It's flat out. It's pathetic. I mean, it's really embarrassing. I'm sure the players are embarrassed. I'm sure Hyde is embarrassed. Elias is embarrassed. I'm sure they're all embarrassed, but I feel like, I don't know. Charlie Morton, I knew he was 41. I didn't know he was going on 61. I mean, he's just getting shelled out there. Probably shouldn't throw another pitch for the Orioles unless it's like a phantom IL or accepting an assignment to AAA for some reason at his age and making $15 million a year. Yeah, I don't know. Anything that can go wrong has gone wrong. It's amazing we're only 4 games under 500, to be honest. Yeah, the starting pitching is a problem, more so than I think anyone could have reasonably expected. I don't have the answers. Gunnar Henderson, I mean, I think he got off to a slow start, basically missed spring training. It seemed like he was breaking out of it, but then I think he's just trying to do too much. He's getting frustrated, and it's not not going as well. It seems like Jackson Holiday's finally starting to take his walks, which we were hoping to see. I could just ramble on about like just Westberg. If you're hurt, go in the IL so we can bring up Kobe Mayo. Like if you're playing through injury, I don't love that. I called you the Austin Hayes of the infield in the past, not because of playing through injuries. I don't want you to be compared in that way. Yeah, it's very frustrating. I still think the talent is here, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Yeah, they're struggling. But I mean, I don't know. I have no answers. You got to do something about the pitching. Hopefully, as guys get healthy and things come back, it can improve to at least be able to keep us in games like we thought this group would. But at least Brandon Young's in the big leagues. That's something to be excited about. But other than that, I'm like, it's pretty depressing, and it's only 3 weeks into the season.
I want to go back to Charlie Morton for a minute because this is not a Cole Irvin 2023 situation where a guy gets off to a bad start and you can just option him to AAA. You don't have that ability with Morton, not to mention you just gave him $15 million this offseason. And I'm not saying that Morton was supposed to come in and be this team's ace, but Charlie Morton has consistently done some things very well throughout his career. That's what allowed him to earn that money this offseason. It's what the reason we liked the signing at the time. But the results have just been terrible. I mean, hitters were hitting over 400 off his curveball going into Sunday's game against the Reds. I don't even want to look at what that number looks like now. It probably looks like an elite baseball team's winning percentage as opposed to a batting average. The results just aren't there for him. And what do you do at this point? Do you shut him down? Do you try to convince him that it's in his best interest to go to AAA Norfolk when he's 41 years old and could just walk away from the game now? How do you handle this?
Just get rid of him. There's nothing else to do. He's even said in his post-game press conferences there that he doesn't even know what's going on. You've been doing this for 20 years and you don't know what's going on. You can't fix it. Drew French can't fix it. Like, if you're going to sit there and say, I don't know what's going on, I can't figure this out, I think there's your sign. Like maybe he finally fell over the cliff. I don't know. Which does suck because like I do like after that Morton signing, when it happened, of course, a lot of people weren't very happy with it because obviously we're here signing another 40-something-year-old pitcher and not someone younger who can pitch at the top of the rotation. But I said at the time, I feel like if Morton was signed after this team had brought in a bigger arm, a lot more people would have been on board with the Charlie Morton signing. Like, cool, let's stabilize the back end of this rotation. If he's going to go out there, even if it's, 5-6 innings a start and he's got a 4.5 ERA, like if he can be a stabilizer at number 5 while Sugano settles in and we figure out, can Cade Povich bounce back in year 2? Can Brandon Young step up? Which prospects can step up and kind of take a rotation spot or force their way in? Charlie Morton's just going to be there being consistent for you day in and day out, as he's done year after year for so many years. And he's completely wet the bed and has been unable to do anything. So I don't know how he can go out. I mean, there are really no other options at this point, except if Kyle Gibson comes up, which seems likely because doesn't he have like an opt-out in like a week? So
May 1st, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if he can come up and help, great, like fine. I mean, if he can come up and pitch to a 5.5 ERA, we're making improvement, which again is sad to think about.
I think it's at a point where, yeah, maybe this isn't the answer. Maybe it's not really Hyde's fault. It's not really, Morton's fault specifically, or you got to start like send a message somehow, make some changes, hope to spark some life in that clubhouse. I mean, I'm not telling anyone that they should be fired, but if you fire Brandon Hyde and bring in Buck Britton as an interim, maybe that, sparks something. Maybe I don't think Charlie Morton should throw another pitch for the Orioles. I think you eat that money, you release him, you send a message there. whether it's, I don't care if it's Kyle Branovich is coming up to take his rotation spot. I mean, it can't be much worse. Jorge Mateo, why is he on this team? We face a lefty today. He's nowhere to be seen. Like, what's the point? Why is he here? Get rid of him. Ciano Perez, look, I get it. He's got flashes of brilliance. He should not be here. If you can't succeed on the field, send a message that, hey, if you don't get it done, there's a chance you could be gone. I don't know. That probably does nothing except like make you feel good in the moment. But man, it's extremely frustrating. Here's our starting pitchers' ERAs. Charlie Morton, 10.89. Dean Kramer, 6.84. Cade Povich, 6.38. Brandon Young, 6.75 in one start. And Tomoyuki Sugano, 3.43. But he's got 8 strikeouts to 5 walks in 21 innings. His FIP is like closer to 6. Yeah, that's what we're looking at right now.
Let's talk about the personnel aspect of this with Brandon Hyde, because Brandon Hyde, as we know from years of doing this show, is a pretty polarizing figure among Orioles fans. You have some people who are strongly defending him right now, saying he's taking you to back-to-back playoff teams. How could someone who's guided you out of the rebuild all of a sudden just lose it? Not to mention that it wasn't his decision to not pursue a top of the rotation arm or to not get a deal done for a top of the rotation arm when Corbin Burns left. It wasn't his decision to sign Charlie Morton. At the same time, though, the Orioles have had back-to-back disappointing results in the playoffs. And really, we're in the middle of a tailspin that has been going on since July. So without looking at a lot of the noise surrounding Hyde, like punting lineups or any of that stuff, what do you guys see? Would firing Brandon Hyde now actually solve any problems? Would it send a message that coincidentally lines up with the point where this team would have gotten better anyways? Is there a justification in your minds for firing him now?
I know, Bob, you jumped on this early. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I honestly don't have a strong opinion right now. It's like you said, I mean, Hyde can only work with what he's got. And yeah, the role of a manager isn't as extreme as I think some people make it out to be. But also, at what point do like the players start being accountable? Like you said, if Westberg is hurt, like why not just say I need to go on the IL? Like be accountable for your own actions there. Or like Mountcastle, what are you doing, my guy? Like you're doing nothing in this lineup. Like you have to place a lot of the blame and a lot of the accountability on the players themselves. These guys are professionals. It's not that they don't care. They do. Of course they do. But like, I don't know how big of an impact Hyde is going to have here. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, what else do you do? Is firing him the answer? I don't know. But like, you just got rid of the hitting coaches and brought more guys in. Like, Drew French is a newer hire. You're not going to like fire him right now. So if you're going to try to send a message or try to shake things up, I don't know where else you can go at that point. But I don't know. Again, Bob was the first one on this. You've been preaching this for like 2 weeks now.
I have. And it's not even so much the second half of 2024. Obviously, the team has looked lifeless since then. I think that was more of injuries and maybe that's when I'm not in the clubhouse. I don't know what's happening in there. But for the same reason I defended Hyde up until this point, until like late last year, he clearly had the clubhouse on his side. Players were playing hard for him. We were overachieving. And if we are overachieving, I would like to say that the manager, like that's in this day and age, that's pretty much the sole responsibility other than putting which order of names on the lineup card and stuff like that is just, I don't know, getting the most of your guys. And it could change nothing. Buck Britton could come in and could be the same exact results. But to me, if you're underachieving now for more than half a season, maybe the message is stale. And, maybe he's still a good manager, but this is the 7th year. Maybe it's just like there's only so long one guy can preach the same thing before it gets stale. And then I don't know. I feel like you got to try something at some point before it gets too late. I know the Astros were 7-19 or something like that last year, and they still made the playoffs. And I still think this is a playoff caliber team, and I'm fully expecting to make the playoffs and for them to turn it around at some point. But you don't want to dig yourself in too big of a hole. Maybe it's not the answer, but again, you got to do something, or you're just insane doing the same thing, expecting different result.
My big thing is that I just don't see how things get better immediately. The lineup, sure, we can again. Bob started rallying off a lot of the positives there with the lineup, and we can go through the lineup, and there are some positives there. And I know we're just coming off a game where things didn't go that well, but I do still love most of this lineup. But when I look at the pitching, that's where it's what's coming up now? Yes, Zach Eflin's going to come back healthy, hopefully soon, and help out. Again, if Kyle Gibson can pitch to a 4.5 ERA, that's an improvement there. But realistically, Chase McDermott, right? We hope he can maybe make an impact, but he's an unknown at the major league level right now, and he's essentially just starting his spring training. Trevor Rogers is going to have his first rehab outing down in Chesapeake tomorrow morning. He could be a couple of weeks away, but he's a project who's been hurt for a while now. So we don't know what he's going to be. I don't see Grayson Rodriguez coming back this year, to be honest. If you're going to go for a second opinion, it's been a few days now. There's still no word. I think before today's game, Hyde or somebody had said, no update about Grayson. It's not because the doctor took off Easter and he's catching up on a backlog of paperwork. The answer by now. Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells, by the time they get back and are able to give you meaningful innings, it may be too late at that point when they're able to come back. So I just don't see anything else. Thad Ward, if Thad Ward comes up, he's got an 18% walk rate and a 17% strikeout rate right now. If Thad Ward is coming up pitching for the Baltimore Orioles, then you're waving the white flag. The season is over. That's what concerns me the most.
Yeah, if I can step back and maybe try to put the orange colored glasses on and see how this rotation could kind of iron itself out a little bit, at least to be mediocre rather than god awful. It's you released Charlie Morton. Sagano continues to pitch well. Povich continues to improve. Yeah, he had a terrible outing his last time out. He's also got really bad BABIP luck. I'm still a fan of Povich. I just think a lot is being put on his shoulders right now when he was supposed to just be the fifth starter who's impressed in spring training and trying to carry that over in his first full season. If he can just kind of get comfortable, Dean Kramer, if he can go back to being Dean Kramer, mid-Dean Kramer, then I would be happy with that. Kyle Gibson comes up, and he's somewhere between the Kyle Gibson of last year and the Kyle Gibson with the Orioles. Like you said, a 4.5 to 5 ERA, giving you 5 to 6 innings every time out. And then Brandon Young, maybe this gives him a chance. Oh, Zach Eflin will be back soon too. I completely forgot about Zach Eflin, and it's only been a couple weeks. But yeah, Zach Eflin gets healthy. Maybe Brandon Young gets a chance to come up and get comfortable. I thought he looked good. We'll talk about it more in his debut. It's a big moment there. If Trevor Rogers can get healthy, and if he's throwing 93, 94 as opposed to 90, 91, I think that can make a big difference for him. So I think as you get into May, June, Kittredge is back. I know the bullpen really hasn't been much of a problem, but every little bit helps. Chase McDermott eventually. Kyle Bradish is way ahead of schedule, in my opinion. The fact that he's throwing bullpens before Tyler Wells even, that's pretty encouraging. But again, he might come back August and it doesn't even matter at that point. And it could take him time to get ready. So trying to look at things with the half full rather than half empty. I think that the pitching should get better. It's almost hard for it to get worse.
Before we move on, I just want to bring this up because it's been in the back of my mind now for a couple of weeks as he's been mired in a little bit of a slump. Are either one of you worried about Adley Rutzman?
I'm personally not. His metrics, his baseball savant page looks much better this season than last season's. And really, I think he's been having a pretty decent approach. He could always, even in his best of times, could be more aggressive early in counts, like sit early fastball and try to do damage with it. But I don't think that's just who he is at this point. I think he's hitting the ball hard. He's just not had the best luck at it right now. Honestly, I think it's, again, it's just everything at once. Like, you're not getting the pitching. The guys that are doing everything right in the box and just don't have the results for it. Same with Jackson Holiday. I think he's like, his hard hit percentage is right around what it was last year. Swing and miss is way down. Every contact rate is way up. Like, they're doing everything right, and the results just aren't there. Gunnar Henderson's hitting the ball like 110 every single time he makes contact. Results haven't been there. So back to the question. I do not think that I'm worried about Adley. I just hope it doesn't spiral and it causes him to, bad luck can turn into changing things, and that could turn into a slump. So I say just keep doing what you're doing and hope it breaks through.
Yeah, there are 30 other things to be worried about. Adley, I don't think is one of them. Like, honestly, realistically, yeah, there you go. Adley is least of our worries. That is a very accurate statement. Again, there are some issues with the lineup, but I feel like that's, it's Ryan Mountcastle, it's Jorge Mateo. It's replacing those guys who are very easily replaceable. It's this pitching. I don't know. Like, yeah, if they're just even marginally better and can keep you afloat until these guys start coming back healthy, and maybe McDermott or Rogers is able to give you something, and Eflin's going to be back healthy, and maybe Bradish is back earlier than we hope, and he looks good. Like, yeah, there are reasons to be optimistic there, but then over the course of this next month or so, is this lineup going to be able to keep the team afloat? Like, that's the other concern that I have. I just don't know. This is a nightmare, honestly, right now.
It really is.
Again, and I'm not saying the season is over by a long shot. Like, I'm not ready to storm the warehouse. We're not J6 in this thing yet, but it's just the last 2 days have been absolutely miserable, and I don't know.
And even the fact that you brought in Gary Sanchez to hit lefties, you brought in Tyler O'Neill to hit lefties, and they're not. Ramon Laureano, he brought in to hit lefties. He didn't even play tonight, and he's hit much better against righties. It's crazy. It's just anything that can go wrong.
Yeah, Laureano was showing us some things. That was exciting what he was doing the other day. But Gary Sanchez, my God, man. Yeah, I don't know. James McCann, maybe we should have brought him back. Gary Sanchez is awful. He is god awful, and I don't see him being any sort of asset to this big league team, to be honest.
Samuel Basayo, where are you at? Literally, where are you?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about Adley. I mean, I want to see him get going at the plate, because it's the end of last year and the beginning of this year to some extent have been frustrating. But if there's a handful of hitters whose baseline stats don't look great right now, but I expect to turn it around, I would put Adley in that group. And all right, are we good now? You think? Like, do you have it out of our system for the time being? Because Nick had told me on Sunday that we were going to have to put an explicit label on this episode, and so far you guys have kept it clean.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remain optimistic here, and just you got to get it out. After these two, it is rightful that you got to get it out, and there are constructive ways of getting it out, I think. But yeah, it's just until Mackenzie Gore strikes out 18 batters in the next day or two. Until then, I'll be all right.
Yeah, I've kept it clean out of respect for our younger listeners or our parents who maybe like to listen with the kid in the car, something like that. No need to get crass. I mean, if you would have recorded this Sunday late afternoon, maybe it would have been a different story. But it felt good to vent. I'll probably be able to sleep soundly tonight, and then hopefully tomorrow night I'm not back to the same dark, depressing thoughts again.
Well, let's just all note now that for Bob, this is less likely to trigger profanity than his neighbor showing up at a live podcast wearing a Yankees jersey.
Yeah, that was pretty fucked up. Oh.
We'll move on now to Braxton Bragg, who, after what it's not an exaggeration to say, was probably the best start by any minor league pitcher, and frankly, maybe the best start by any pitcher in this organization for Aberdeen last week against Brooklyn, earned a promotion to Double-A Chesapeake. In that start, Bragg threw 7 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts, no walks, and just 3 hits allowed, and he was seemingly getting stronger with his command and being able to maintain his velocity as he cruised through Brooklyn's order on just 79 pitches in those 7 innings of work. And the numbers over his 3 starts in Aberdeen before the promotion to Double-A were excellent. No earned runs allowed, just 6 hits with 18 strikeouts against 5 walks. And most of those walks came in what was an uncharacteristically shaky outing for Bragg in his first start of the year in terms of his command. And really, if you go back to the second half last year at Delmarva, especially, Bragg has been one of the most dominant starters in the Orioles system. Nick, I'll start with you. You gave a pretty good breakdown of what Bragg's pitch mix is on the show a couple of weeks ago. We have seen all of that so far, especially the kick change being a big difference maker for him. We knew coming into this year that Bragg was a pitching prospect that you need to have your eye on, but it feels like he's taken an even bigger step forward so far.
Yeah, I just had to have it written down somewhere after that first outing just to confirm later on if he did blow up. And we are less than a month into the season, and here we are. Bragg already being promoted to Double-A. And because I said after his very first start that he was going to be a big riser on my list, just because you could tell in that first outing that he was improved. And I think it was mentioned that his repertoire now is a 4-seamer, a 2-seamer, a cutter, a sweeper, and a kick change. He's sitting in the mid-90s. He's touching 98 reportedly. And he's also apparently lowered his arm slot a bit. So he's been able to get to what I feel like you're hearing more and more of in reference to this, being able to throw your fastball from a low arm slot with a high induced vertical break, and you can lower the vertical attack angle. So you get more of that rising effect. And someone please jump in and tell me if I'm wrong. I'm slowly diving into pitch shape design, all that stuff, but I'm by no means an expert in that area. But this is a fastball here that you're looking at potential plus offering legitimately, and an above average, at least slider, sweeper. And I don't have the Fangraphs thing pulled up, but I think Fangraphs mentioned the changeup as plus potential. And the big issue being that like it didn't fall out of the zone. It needed to fall out of the zone more, I think is what Eric Longenhagen put it, because they're just kind of landing in the zone. Well, if you get it to fall out of the zone and get more swing and miss on it, then it could be a potential plus offering. Like, so yeah, it's fascinating, honestly, for Bragg to see this rise so quickly. And I loved it on the pitching side down on the farm. We can talk about positive pitching for a moment. All the guys that kind of had mini or initial breakouts last year, except for, Keeler Morphe right now. But all these guys are having solid starts to the year, some better than others. But even Morphe, yeah, he's having a rough start right now. He's young. It's okay. Nowhere, not even searching for a panic button right now with Morphe. But here you have Bragg stepping up as a guy who, where was he in our top 50? Back end of the top 50? Like, the numbers were good. They were fantastic last year. But you're like, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of thought, all right, the numbers are really good, but he didn't get promoted last year. He spent all year in Delmarva. So are we just kind of hoping he can get to high A and maybe the strikeout rate goes down a little bit, walks go up a little bit, but he's kind of just a solid average starter in high A. Maybe he gets to Double-A and we think he's doing enough. He's a little bit intriguing where maybe by the time we get to Double-A, put him in the bullpen and let's see what happens. And now you're like, he's a legitimate starting pitching prospect in this organization.
Yeah, exactly. I completely thought of him as a reliever, future reliever with interesting delivery. So, could give a different look. But the fact that the stuff has just jumped in one offseason so much. And I just love when the Orioles tell you how they feel about someone without telling you. Like the fact that he gets 3 starts in Aberdeen, it's like, oh, no, this is not a competition for him. He's just got to go up to Double-A that fast. Same with Levi Wells. The fact that he didn't play the full season last year, didn't perform well when he did, doesn't matter. Stuff was so good. We're putting him right to Double-A, and it's proven out to be the correct choice. Yeah, Braxton Bragg is now a dude, which is just awesome. Awesome to see. And yeah, it's one of the most exciting things, especially with the way, like we just talked about, what the Orioles are doing. If we're getting blown out early, it's time to go to the minor league games and at least get some comfort there. And guys like Bragg and Wells and just countless pitchers in the organization giving you that hope. And even with Pat Riley going down and Zach Fruit ending up on the IL, we don't know why. I don't think that's why Bragg was promoted to Double A. Maybe it had something to do with it, but you could have easily put Juan Nunez into the rotation to fill one of those spots, or Michael Ferret, who had already spent a lot of time at Aberdeen. No, Braxton Bragg, boom, gets jumped right up there. I think it speaks volumes. And yeah, I'm very curious to see where he ends up on our top 50. And also Blake Money, same thing. Like, he's been really, really good so far in Aberdeen after spending all of last year in Delmarva. But
Yeah, I know for myself when I was putting together the top 50 over the offseason, it's like, all right, I know Braxton Bragg is going to be on my list somewhere. And I'm interested in seeing what he does this year. But at the same time, that second half, as dominant as it was, I've seen pitchers have dominant halves at levels and then go up to the next level. And when they get there, they're okay, but they don't look quite the same. And like Nick said, it could be the strikeout rate dips a little bit, the walk rate comes up. And although this isn't as much of a concern going to Aberdeen, a lot of times you have to worry about that home run to fly ball rate going in the wrong direction and all the other numbers going up because of that. But with Bragg, the stuff jump has been incredible. And I think, Bob, you kind of bring up a good point there, which is that there's no shortage of pitchers at Aberdeen who, if the Orioles promoted to Double A tomorrow, you would question why they were promoted. You wouldn't question why Michael Ferret was being promoted. You wouldn't question why Trey Gibson was being promoted. You wouldn't question why Nestor Herman is being promoted. And frankly, you shouldn't question why Bragg is being promoted because he deserves it. And the stuff jump that backs up the results so far tells a much different story than the pitcher we thought we knew after last season.
That was the other point I was going to bring up. And you guys answered that. I was curious how my brain was thinking with this promotion, especially after you see that. I mean, we knew Pat Riley left the last start with elbow discomfort. We know what that means. The Zach Fruit thing is weird that there's unknown reasons. Like, somebody knows something and there's a reason why they're not saying anything. That's weird as well. But I started thinking, yeah, you've got Herman, you've got Gibson, you've got Ferret. Like, are those guys, when the Orioles look at like their future projections on guys and how they view these prospects, was it, we're going to give it to Bragg because we see him as a potential stuff monster reliever that let's go ahead and push him up to Double A. He's going to get some innings now. Maybe he can end the year in AAA, and maybe even if the stuff really is that unbelievably good, then maybe we think this can play in the major leagues pretty soon, and he could be an option for us. Meanwhile, Herman, Gibson, and Ferret are the higher ceiling starting pitching prospects who we just feel like aren't quite ready to get the bump up to Double A. So we're just going to go ahead and move Bragg up. But yeah, I think I tend to agree. When you go, when's the last time an Orioles prospect went 7 innings? I feel like that is a rarity to see. Like, that's 7 shutout innings. I don't think he walked anybody. Maybe he had 1 walk in that outing. It's just, at some point, you're just like, yeah, it might have only been 3 starts, but they were 3 of the best starts, I think, in all the minor leagues so far this year. And so congrats to Bragg, man. That is just, I think every other tweet from Baseball America in the last 24 hours has been about Braxton Bragg. Like, people are taking notice already.
Not since Alex Pham went from ho-hum reliever to one of our better pitching prospects. And seriously, why is he in Double A still? Have we seen a jump like this? So yeah, it's hats off to him, the organization, everybody involved, done wonders. And this is not like a one-off thing. This continues to happen. That's why the Orioles are becoming renowned for their pitching development. Now let's get them to the major leagues, but no, it's just part of the process. And yeah, it's great to see.
And with that, now we will dive into our last segment, last call, brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing, located at 1421 Ridgely Street. Checker Spot is the perfect place for a pre or post game beer. short distance from Memorial Park at Camden Yards. In fact, I was in there on Sunday and I saw many people coming in after that game, and they really deserved a beer if they sat through that one. You can also get Checker Spot at the ballpark this year. Look for them behind home plate where you can find their signature beer, The Bird is the Word. And now we will have our usual final segment where we shout out players outside the top 30 portion of our top 50 list for something they've done recently, whether that's been a good game, a good week, or maybe there's just something interesting in their stat line that we want to point out. And I'll start with Nick, who this week is actually following the rules.
Yeah, I decided to play by the rules for once. Let me find my stat sheet here so I can properly shout them out. My hitter, it was tough across the Orioles minor leagues and on the hitting front as well last week. There were some standouts. Mentioned a couple particular great at bats from certain prospects like Vance Honeycutt in our Monday recap episode for patrons. There were a lot of good, but for the most part, some struggles, including Bowie or Chesapeake, who the Bay Sox went like 21 or 22 innings without scoring a run in Richmond last week, but they still won the series. And a big part of that was Adam Retzbach, catcher down in Chesapeake, 14th round pick out of Lehigh. Hasn't seen a ton of playing time over the last few years, but he hit .313 with 2 doubles, a home run, had 2 walks to just 3 strikeouts, and OPS over, it was 1046 OPS for the week. So he played a major role in Chesapeake getting a series win down in Richmond. When the rest of the offense struggled, Retzbach picked it up. He strikes out a ton, doesn't hit for much average, but he does have a lot of power. So that was really good to see. And my pitcher, I'm going with a guy who I don't think we'll be able to use in a couple of weeks or a couple of months because it's going to be too high on our top 50 list, hopefully. But I think Sebastian Gongora was one of the top arms down on the farm last week. He went just 2 innings in his start on Sunday, but there was 2 no-hit innings with a walk, 5 strikeouts, and he got 12 whiffs in 2 innings. And according to the broadcast, he was 93 to 95, but the secondaries looked fantastic. He was not very sharp in his first 2 outings of the year. He only made it 2 2/3 in his first 2 starts, allowed 6 runs with 6 walks and just 4 strikeouts. But the velo's back up, and John Mioli was the first one to start putting Gongora's name out there a few times in the offseason. And as often as we talk with John, you can learn a lot about prospects without him having to say things directly. And so I think as he put together his top 30 list at Baseball America and he made his calls and got his stuff ready for this season, Gongora's name was brought up to him a lot. And he's casually been working the name in places as like an early breadcrumb. So I've been paying close attention to Gongora's outing so far this year. And Sunday was short, but very good.
Absurd. 12 whiffs in 2 innings. Like that change up. It's not fair for those kids at that level. I'll go with my pitcher first, Ryan Long, AA Bowie starting pitcher, who he's been kind of like a stuff guy, but not the results to show for it recently. I know in was it last spring training he came out, touched 100 or close to it, high 90s maybe, and then went on to have a 5.03 ERA at AA, and 1 start in AAA did not go very well, but he does have that great stuff, and it's a matter of putting it where you need to put it. So far this season, he's been able to do that. 3 starts, he's got a 2.63 ERA, 2.16 FIP, so not exactly luck driven. He's walking under 2 batters per 9. That's pretty amazing for him. And he's striking out over a batter an inning, 23.3% to be exact. 5% walk rate is excellent. So shout out to Ryan Long. Hopefully he can keep up the good work, get back to AAA, and try to maybe he could be the next Carlos Tavera, who looks to be a nice, solid relief prospect at this point. And for my hitter, I'm going to go with Kevin Guerrero, who I think when we were previewing Delmarva, we're like, oh, yeah, remember Kevin Guerrero? Well, Kevin Guerrero remembers because he's having a great season so far. 500 BABIP is not going to keep up, but that's really besides the point. Yeah, he's batting .371 with the 986 OPS, 185 WRC plus, but his walk rate, again, 44 plate appearances, so we're not exactly talking a big sample yet, but walk rate is up to 18.2%. after having a 6.4% last year at Low A Delmarva. And his strikeout rate is 20.5%, down from 32.2%. His contact rate has gone from 59% to 73%. Swinging strike percentage 22% to just under 13%. So a lot to like there, and still, again, just turned 21 less than a week ago at the time of this recording. So shout out to Kevin Guerrero. Also, Yasmel Buche. I was not familiar with your game, but I'm intrigued.
I'm going to start with my pitcher this week, and it's a guy that I know a lot of people internally in the Orioles organization are high on, and that's Dylan Hyde. And the reason that I'm shouting out Hyde is that he made his AAA debut as
Fire
the
Hyde.
Tides,
Oh, wait, wrong Hyde.
as the Orioles traveled to Omaha, scoreless inning with no run, or a scoreless inning with 1 hit allowed, 3 strikeouts, and 2 walks. Hyde looks like a relief prospect at this point. He's always been a guy where the underlying data has been intriguing with him, especially the spin rate on his pitches. We'll see what the rest of the season holds for him, but I feel like after you've put up a 1.72 ERA in 73 AA innings, it's time for a test at AAA, and happy for Hyde that he's now getting that. And then my hitter, Anderson De Los Santos. And this has sort of been a player that we've gone back and forth on over the last 2 years because on one hand, the raw power is very impressive. On the other hand, strikes out a ton, and the numbers across the board just have not really been there. But off to a solid start at Aberdeen this year, and he had a very good series last week as they hosted Brooklyn, going 5 for 15 at the plate with 3 extra base hits, including a home run. So far, what we're seeing, granted, this is purely eye test because I have not seen a lot of batted ball data for De Los Santos at this point in the year, but he's squaring up on the ball. He's got a good on-base percentage right now. 7 walks and 43 plate appearances is a good number for him because the walks have kind of been a concern off and on the last few years. So it's taking a little bit of time, and we'll see if this hot start sustains itself, but some positive signs in the early goings of the season for De Los Santos. And with that does it. Oh, go ahead.
End it.
And with that does it for this episode. We're going to be back later on this week to talk about Cedric Mullins and his impending free agency. He's expressed an interest in coming back to the Orioles, yet so far from reports, it doesn't seem like the Orioles have really engaged with them. We're going to talk about whether or not they should be thinking about a contract extension for Mullins, and if not, who within the organization could replace him. In the meantime, you can check out our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to our Patreon community and sign up to become a member today at the $3, $5, or $10 levels. You'll have access to bonus coverage throughout the season from Bob, Nick, and myself, including weekly recaps and monthly updates to our top 50 prospects list. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network. Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to look ahead a little bit here to talk about the impending free agency of Cedric Mullins. Mullins recently expressed interest publicly in staying with the Orioles. However, reports have suggested that the team has yet to really engage with his representatives about the possibility of staying in Baltimore. We'll talk about whether or not Mullins is worthy of an extension and what the Orioles' options might be if they don't go down that route, including possibly some homegrown successors lined up in center field. And I'll just start by saying that Mullins' beginning to this season has come as a pleasant surprise. You can go back a few weeks and listen to our prediction show where I predicted that Mullins would be the biggest disappointment on the team this year. So far, that doesn't look like it's coming even close to reality. And as Nick pointed out on our last show, Mullins has really been the only player who's in the lineup every day that has hit as expected so far. The reason that I'm not really diving into numbers right now is that we're recording this on a Tuesday night for a release later in the week. So those numbers are going to be out of date by the time you listen to this. But we'll just start with a simple question here about Mullins' performance in the early goings of this season. What have you guys seen from him, and do you think this hot start is sustainable?
Well, I mean, no, not to this extent. Obviously, I mean he's got a 210 WRC plus right now. I don't expect that to continue, but it is very encouraging that he's taken his walks. He's got a, let's see, the up to the date 19.3% walk rate to go with the 18.2% strikeout rate, which is pretty crazy. And that strikeout rate is pretty stable now after 88 plate appearances. So that's a great sign. The ISO is 333. That's the part that's going to come down. But yeah, he's hitting for average. He's having great at bats, taking his walks. He still has he's 3 stolen bases, so he might not be that 30-30 guy on the base paths anymore. Defense in center field looks like it's dipped a tiny bit, but that's just what happens when you're an outfielder reaching your 30s. He's got a 1.3 WAR F4 already, which is only he had a 2.3 F4 last year, 1.9 the year before that, and he's already at 1.3. 20-ish games, 21 games into the season. No, it can't continue, but I think he's clearly about to have the best season he's had since 2021. And yeah, I'm here for it. It's a walk year. It's been statistically proven that players do perform better in walk years. I think just reap the benefits, offer him the qualifying offer in the offseason. And if he takes it, great. You get one more year at $20 million about for a center fielder to help bridge the gap to hopefully Enrique Bradfield Jr. or whoever it would be, Cowser, Judd Fabian. And if he declines it, then you can pick up a draft pick because he's going to have a great year and get paid by somebody. I'm not super interested in extending him as he's getting into his 30s. But I would love to have him for one more year on the qualifying offer, or at least get that extra draft pick.
It's again after watching the last couple of days, it is tough to not change my mind a little bit on some things. But I think just zooming out and looking at this, yeah, I'm mostly in agreement here that I think I pulled up that research article, and it's like 6 to 7% increase in OPS in players in their contract year increase. So like we're seeing that with Mullins is trending well above that right now. Even hitting lefties, like a 260 something WRC plus against lefties and like 15, 16 plate appearances. Of course, none of that is going to stick, but still, he is the sole reason why this team is still, it's not complete dumpster fire. Cedric Mullins is saving us a little bit here, but yeah, I just think it's been pointed out numerous times already coming into the year, the data points on Mullins that point to his eventual decline. And now that he's on the other side of 30, you have these internal options that, I think we're going to talk about here are good. So it's not like, you got to overspend to get the talent in here. Like it's not that type of situation. I don't think there's a lot that points to this Mullins contract year being a bit of an outlier. It's great. I'm going to enjoy it. And I do agree that if you want to extend the qualifying offer, he's going to decline it. If he keeps hitting like this and playing like this, he's going to decline it. You get the draft pick, you move on. The internal candidates are pretty solid right now. And so now you're going to sit here and I do think it's kind of tough right now to sit here and be like, why wouldn't you try to get some small extension with Mullins as a reward for being the one guy who's doing something? But thinking long term, like putting this last week behind, thinking long term, I think the right move is give him the qualifying offer, let him decline it, wish him all the best. I think he's someone that I don't think anyone is going to ever think anything negatively about Cedric Mullins and his time here in Baltimore. He'll be remembered fondly. But yeah, I have a hard time seeing that happening.
I mean, I can't sit here and say I wouldn't give him a 2-year, $35 million contract, but why would he do that when he has a chance to cash in for the first time? So it just doesn't really make sense. He's going to get paid by somebody. I'm happy for him, just like with Santander. But yeah, I think you got to kind of stick to your guns here.
Just to back up for a moment and to give our listeners who maybe have not seen these quotes or need a refresher on them a little bit of context of why we're talking about this week. In an episode, a story that ran The Athletic on April 16th, Mullins agent Robin Cope told Ken Rosenthal that the team has not broached the possibility of an extension, even though Mullins wishes that they would. And then Mullins followed up on comments to Andy Koska over the Baltimore Banner. When asked about that, he said, quote, 100% just being drafted by Baltimore and just knowing what Baltimore and the city offered me and my family over the course of my career has been nothing short of amazing. So to have those negotiations take place, it's all in timing. So reading between the lines there, I think we can see that there has not really been, at least what Mullins' team would see as serious overture to keep him here. I have to say that I was not that surprised by that revelation, given that Mullins has sort of been up and down since that 2021 season, and that the Orioles have spent a lot of time, and this is something we're going to talk about more in a minute, lining up possible successors in center field. But do you guys think that those comments got the traction that they did because Mullins is playing so well right now, and because he is the longest tenured Oriole right now, or because the Orioles have not extended anyone yet, and this is a sign of, okay, the front office just isn't taking it that seriously?
I think it's because, again, like, everyone loves Cedric Mullins. Everyone always has. Everyone always will. I've said this a million times. Like, I can still picture his face, even on Bowie's broadcasts. It's hard to see faces on the broadcast. I can still picture his face, like just this dejected Cedric Mullins after he'd been demoted twice. It was pathetic at bats from Mullins after he'd been from the majors down to AAA and then down to AA again, and watching him break out of that and get back up to the majors and have that 30-30 season was remarkable and amazing to watch. But I think this is just like Santander. A lot of debate, all the back and forth and discussion about Santander. Should they sign him? Will they re-sign him? When the entire time this organization knew that they didn't want Santander back unless it was going to be on a fantastic team-friendly deal. Like, think long term. Mullins might give you the rest of this year. Mullins might give you next year. He might have a really good year next year as well. And people are going to be frustrated if it's not in Baltimore. But if you get a 3 or 4 year deal, how many of those years are going to be bad? Like, potentially, you might get one more really, really solid year from Mullins. So I think long term, it's the same thing as Santander. They're looking at this as unless you're going to get something that Cedric Mullins has no right to sign and accept, they're pretty fine with letting him walk.
Yeah, I think, it's probably just, fans want to see, especially the players that are playing well, they want to see them stick around. And everybody loves Mullins. He had such a fantastic second half last year, but maybe this is the jinx. When he's playing well, the team doesn't, so he's got to go. No, I wish he would, keep his legs from when he was in his late 20s for 5 more years, then I'd be happy to re-sign him to an extension. But unfortunately, it's just not the way things are. Hopefully they re-sign somebody though, just to quiet that little factoid down, and just because it would be cool too. So,
and let's talk about seemingly what the Orioles have done for the last few years to prepare for this. They stuck with developing Colton Cowser in center field while continuing to play him at the corners. And in the somewhat limited data we have from Cowser's time in the major leagues, he grades out as a pretty good center fielder. Not as well as he does in left field, but the numbers have been solid there. But then you follow that up with Jud Fabian at AAA right now, who has a lot of question marks surrounding his game. But you look at the data, especially the batted ball data down in Norfolk this year, and it seems like he's maybe addressing some of those swing and miss concerns. Down in high A, you have Van Honeycutt, who has a case as the most athletic player in this farm system. And then at Double A, you have the guy that I think everybody has already decided in their heads is Cedric Mullins' successor in center field. And that's Enrique Bradfield Jr. Now, Bradfield's currently on the IL at Chesapeake, but this is not expected to be a long-term injury. He was off to a very good start before going on the IL, and there's no reason to believe that when he comes back and he's healthy, that he's not going to pick up where he left off. So the Orioles do have a lot of options, and yes, there are question marks with all of them, but at the same time, we know that center field has been a priority for this organization.
Yeah, if you let Mullins walk, I think the Enrique Bradfield Jr. is the guy that the organization wants to take over the reins. And if he's not ready, and this is a hamstring injury, he's running out of triple in 30-degree weather. It happened. He's not injury prone. There's no concern there. He'll be back soon. He's still in a position to where he can end the year in AAA, and it could be a huge spring training opportunity for Bradfield next year. So you may not be waiting very long for that successor if you let Mullins go. I love Kowser's ability to play out there in center field. I think he'll be more than adequate. And also, if Bradfield takes a little bit longer, when you got Judge Fabian there, I entered the year as the offseason went along and we're gearing up for our top 50 list. And we're putting this together. I'm looking at this crop, this Fabian, Beavers, that tier right there. And I'm knocking Fabian down a couple pegs. I'm just like, I don't know. That it was a very small sample size, but that little bit in AAA just left a bad taste in my mouth because we saw what he did in college. Everyone knows what he did in college. The swing and miss was an issue in college. It was an issue in the lower levels of the minor leagues. He gets to AAA and it was brutal. And so, yeah, if he can improve on it, but when he gets to the major leagues, how brutal is it going to get again in the major leagues? But I know I don't want to bring this name up because I know it's going to trigger a lot of people right now. Kyle Stowers did it. We saw him make the improvements once he got to the major leagues, and we see what he's doing in Miami right now. I'm feeling a little bit more confident in Judd Fabian's ability to stick in the major leagues, just because you look at just comparing his AAA time, he's got the swinging strike rate down from 20.5% down to 15.5%. His contact rate is up. It's still not good at all. It's like 62%, but that's an improvement from last year. He's chasing less. He's swinging less and making more contact. We know the power is there. We know the glove is there, obviously. I really like Fabian as a fourth outfield type to pair with Kowser until Bradfield's ready. And even when Bradfield's ready, Fabian, Bradfield, Kowser, having these guys in the outfield, it's solid. And it's a big reason why, yes, there are questions, but these guys are a big reason why I'm okay if Mullins ends up walking.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that Colton Kowser can play center field at this point. That was a debate at some point in time. He can definitely play center field. Clearly, you'd rather him be just basically an elite left fielder. If you could have a guy like EBJ or Fabian. First of all, shout out to Duke Hill on Blue Sky, who created Prospect Savant using the minor league StatCast data. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome follow and pretty awesome website. He's got Judd Fabian's numbers, and yeah, he's improved quite a bit with his swinging strike percentage and contact rate and strikeout rate, and he's still continuing to hit the ball really hard. He's not chasing. He's 90th percentile chase percentage right now. So I think Judd Fabian is making the changes, or at least enough adjustments that we've been wanting to see, that maybe he is a viable major leaguer. We know he's a viable major leaguer, but like a bigger role than worst case scenario would have been if he never cured those ails. But yeah, I think he looks really good so far this season, continuing to develop. And Bradfield Jr., he looked great in the week of play that he got before going on the injured list, and I'm fully expecting that to continue. Honestly, wouldn't be shocked if he's up at Norfolk sooner than maybe a lot of people think, just because, I mean, he seems really comfortable out there in AA. So why not push him a little bit? So yeah, between those three guys, and I know Dylan Beavers can't play center field, but I just want to say, like, he's looked really good since the first 2 weeks of the season. He clearly made an adjustment because everything kind of clicked all at once there. He looks fantastic. He could play a corner at some point, but yeah, I think the outfield is not really much of a problem right now, long term anyway. Between Kjerstad, Kowser, EVJ, Fabian, Beavers, and a whole bunch of other guys down the line, looking pretty good there. So that's why you don't need to feel pressured to lock up Cedric Mullins to like a 4-year deal or something like that.
Yeah, I kind of view it. I think I agree with Nick that Bradfield is the guy that I absolutely see as the successor. But if for some reason he's not ready to go right away in 2026, you've got options here between Kauser and Fabian. And then, looking further down the line, there's a lot of unanswered questions with Vance Honeycutt, and I'm not anywhere close to anointing him an everyday major league center fielder yet. But you can see the athletic abilities are coming through at Aberdeen, even if some nights the box score has been a little bit ugly so far. But Bradfield, I agree with you, Bob. I think that once he's back off the IL, based on how he looked before he got hurt, and as Nick said, this injury is more of a product of the type of conditions he's playing in than anything. He will at least be performing well enough for promotion in Norfolk quickly. Whether or not that happens right away remains to be seen, but I think the numbers are going to be there to justify it.
Yeah. Can we take a moment? Shout out Vance Honeycutt's numbers, though. He's the furthest away. And if Fabian can click in the major leagues and Bradfield is the guy, and you can turn Honeycutt around, Honeycutt becomes a major, major trade piece for you. But anyway, long way to go there. But as of right now, a lot of talk about Honeycutt's contact rate in college and then the dreadful performance last year in pro ball. Well, as of right now, as of Tuesday, April 22nd, his contact rate has jumped from 59% last year to 74.5%. And his swinging strike rate is going from 16.9% down to 9.3%. Like, pretty solid for Honeycutt. And same thing, he is also the defense, speed, all that, not an issue there. So shout out to these guys at the Orioles. Still early, we're still just in April, but some of these guys that the Orioles took big gambles on in the draft, showing improvements.
Absolutely. And with that, now we will go into our final segment of the night. Last call brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing, located at 1421 Ridgely Street. Checker Spot is not too far from Canham Yards, and it's a perfect place for a pre or post game drink. And while you're at the ballpark this year, be sure to check out the beer stand behind home plate for the Bird Award, one of their signature beers. Checker Spot Brewing, great place to check out, open 7 days a week. Now, we're going to go to a question here from a listener, Seth, and I thought that this was a really interesting one, so I decided to make it a prompt for discussion tonight as opposed to waiting for our next mailbag episode. His question is, at some point, will the build of this team, which right now, as he knows, is young hitters with mid-veteran pitchers, flip and will become known for elite pitching? I think we're slightly underrated in terms of our pen, but the profile should bump up eventually. Now, we've talked a lot in the last couple of weeks alone just about the concentration of pitchers at high A and double A especially that are performing well right now, and how the last two draft class could yield a lot of talent. But we also know that's not going to pay off right away. So is there an eventual flip of the script, as Seth notes, where the Orioles are known more for their pitching and perhaps specifically pitching development than their offense?
It's a good question. I'm on board for that line of thinking. I just think we're already so ingrained in the hitting thing, and we still have Kobe Mayo and Samuel Basayo coming up, and then Enrique Bradfield. And I'm very confident in the team's ability, Vance Honeycutt, in developing these guys, these international guys coming up. I think the hitting development is still going to be good enough with the core that's already in the majors that I don't think the pitching's going to overtake the storyline when it comes to the development in this organization. But I do think the fans are going to be shocked at how many great pitchers are going to come up one after another starting next year, the year after, whatever it is. I think at a certain point, this is just going to be a pitching factory. And whether that's back end starters, relievers for the most part, just because hopefully you're going with some guys like Kyle Bradish and free agents and trades and solidified guys, just like, I don't want to compare us to the Dodgers, but the young guys are going to have to earn it. But yeah, I think this is going to be a pitching factory, even though it's already proven to be a hitting factory. And I think that will continue for the most part as well.
Yeah, thinking about this, I think I do agree. It's not like you're going to be pumping out 4 aces every single year from the minor leagues, but I'm convinced that this organization had their hitting philosophy in place from the jump. It worked, and they were also able to hit at an alarming rate when it comes to hitters in the draft, which helped. Even guys who aren't here anymore, it's Joey Ortiz is a major league starter for the Brewers. Say what you will about the Marlins, but Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers are starters for them. Even Billy Cook is on the Pirates 40-man roster right now, and Rates and Barrels legend Billy Cook right now. But the hitting development worked. There's also a lot of luck there. Not all top draft picks work. They don't all pan out. There's a lot of luck involved there as well. The Orioles could have went Drew Jones. They could have went Tamar Johnson. But instead, Jackson Holliday is in the big leagues right now. And Elijah Green is probably still striking out 85% of the time for like Wilmington. I don't know. I didn't watch Aberdeen game yet to see. But I just think the hitting was there from the start. And you go back to 2019 draft and you look at the pitchers, I see a lot of college pitchers, and maybe this is hindsight. Like we know pretty much all these guys are released. Most of them aren't even in baseball anymore. Cade Stroud is on the 40-man, but that's about it. But 2019, I see a lot of college pitchers with very little upside, but like different traits, different profiles. It's almost like they said, we're going to bring in a number of different types of pitchers, and we're going to use these guys as like the experimentation lab and just see what works and what doesn't work and what fits with their profiles and yada, yada. But 2020 delayed everything by a year. You got a 5-round draft. So they just went Carter Baumler in that draft. And unfortunately, that did not work out. But 2021, you start to see some of the results in these experiments. You get better pitching coaches and analysts in the organization who now a lot of these guys have moved up the ranks within the organization. And, now you're seeing the exact type of profile that the Orioles want in their pitchers. And you don't need to spend first or even second or maybe even third round draft picks to get this type of pitcher. And I don't know, we're starting to see the fruits of that labor. And it's not in AAA right now. The majority of it isn't in AA right now, but the pieces are trickling up into those levels. And it's going to take even longer to see it on the international front, but those guys are coming as well. I just think no one wants to hear this right now because the big leagues are so bad, especially in the pitching department. But I truly do believe that you're going to start seeing more and more arms reach the big leagues. And the conversation won't be, oh, if it works out, this guy's going to be a really good number 5. It's not going to be a bunch of like, Kyle Branoviches. It's going to be every year, 1 or 2 guys that come up and the conversation is, if this pans out, he's going to be a really solid 2 or 3 in your rotation. Maybe an ace pops every 5 years or so, but you're going to see more of these top line guys start to bubble up to the big leagues. Meanwhile, continue to use those top draft picks for bats and keep flipping them for the pitching. Like that's going to work. I truly believe that. Trey Gibson was not drafted. Nestor Herman, like Michael Ferret from the JUCO ranks, like we can go on and on and on. You don't need to invest heavily in the pitching department to grow good pitchers and use that to acquire the big time bats that you can trade. And I think we do see that later. This is what gives me a little bit of optimism because just last year, the Orioles went out and traded Jackson Baumeister, Matt Horvath, and Matthew Etzel. I always forget that guy's name. I don't know why. And he was one of the best ones of the group. But you traded those 3 guys for Zach Eflin. That was a fantastic trade. A+ work. The pieces to make another deal like that are still here in the system right now. And the Orioles are loaded with draft picks this year to restock and make more of those deals, all while your Michael Fritz and your Trey Gibsons and these other high-profile pieces start to bubble up the organization into the ranks. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to be like elite, but you're going to see some dudes coming up. It's just, unfortunately, we're not there quite yet. And that's what we need the most at the major league level.
Incredibly well said. One of the most frustrating things to keep hearing is, see, this is what happens when you don't invest early in the draft and pitching. And it's like, you're not paying attention. You have no idea what you're talking about. And I love even more, wow, Brandon Young is the first Michael Elias drafted or signed player to make it to the majors. Like, you don't get credit for Cade Povich, who you specifically targeted and traded for early and then developed. Same with Chase McDermott. Same with Kyle Bradish. Grayson Rodriguez had pitched like 10 innings in Baltimore, like for this organization before Mike Elias took over. Frustrating. Anyway.
Yeah, it's going to take a while for this to materialize at a major league level. And I understand it's a frustration right now when you look down in AAA and you don't see these top tier prospect arms there. And it's going to take another year for them to filter up in Norfolk. So this is not a short-term flip. I think at the very least, though, to Seth's question, there's going to be a little bit more balance. I think the Orioles, to some extent, are always going to be seen as an offense-first organization, partially because of the ballpark they play in, and that as long as they're in the AL East, they're going to have to score a lot of runs to win games. But at the same time, it's not going to be, at some point in the next few years, we're at least going to be at the point where even nationally, we can drop the whole narrative. And if something works out where the Orioles end up trading for an ace that has multiple years of team control left, or they trade for another Corbin Burns, and this time around they actually keep that player in free agency, we don't have to talk about it all anymore. So, we're getting closer, but I know it's a frustrating thing for people that it's not going to happen this year, but there is a better balance coming.
Absolutely.
And with that, that does it for us this week. We will be back next week to talk all things in Birdland, including the major leagues and the minor leagues. Hopefully, we'll have a little bit better things to talk about in the majors next week. But in the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. Nick has been pumping out a lot of draft coverage there. So if you want to look ahead to some of the players that the Orioles might be able to take this year, go check out our Substack. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to our Patreon community to sign up and become a member at the $3, $5, or $10 levels. We're now just about 10 days away from the first monthly update to our top 50 prospect list this season. So you don't want to miss that, or the weekly bonus shows that Bob, Nick, and myself do for paying members of our Patreon community. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.